Set 8.5's world champion was declared yesterday, and Replay was the winner. So congratulations to Replay, and North America reigns on top. Fuck you EU, fuck you China, fuck you Japan. Actually, no, not fuck you Japan. I love Japan, but like, I mean, I love China and Europe too. But you get the idea. Listen, it's just a little bit of competitive banter, right? Don't cancel me. But also, quick side note: I do apologize if I seem a little off or if my voice is a little low. It was my buddy's birthday last night. We chugged bottles of soju. I feel definitely off. Oren, happy birthday, you sick bastard. I hate you. But you know how it be. The grind don't stop. We gotta get our daily videos in. And listen, this finals, this world championship, because we're gonna rewind it back. This final championship was really odd. Day 3 was very odd, and there's no other way to put it. Setsuko, the other North American, and actually the North American favorite to win the entire tournament, seemed like he completely shat the bed on day 3. If you look at his scores, you might have noticed he won 8th and then 7th in the first 2 games. And then he just proceeded to just not play very well for the rest of the tournament. And why was that the case? What happened to Setsuko, the guy with the most number of points at the end of day 2? He was the favorite to win the entire tournament. So in today's video, we are going to explore that. And bonus thing, by the way, sorry, one last tidbit. I noticed I say the word "I digress" and "you know" way too often in every single one of these videos, and I have been trying to script these videos less, and I'm going to do my best to just not script them very much because I want to get better at just talking it out, you know, just feeling it and like commentating in the moment, whatever the fuck. So if you hear me say "I digress" or "you know," just, I don't know, take a shot. Just, or maybe I should take a shot. I mean, I really shouldn't. I'm drinking coffee. I'm drinking canned coffee this morning, so maybe if I do it, this is my shot, my punishment for the day. But yeah, let's just get on to the video. So again, if I do that, I apologize. I'm doing my best. We are a growing channel. We are learning. Growth is a difficult... I'm rambling. All right, let's just get on. So here we are. We are inside of Setsuko's POV, and unlike most VOD reviews that we normally do on this channel, where we take one VOD in particular and VOD review the whole thing and try to figure out what went wrong, what went well, this is a tournament setting. Multiple games were played, and multiple games played into why Setsuko ended up quote-unquote shitting the bed. Now, I don't even blame Setsuko for his poor performance on day 3 because, as we'll eventually see, he had some very difficult spots to work with. Very difficult spots. And you could argue that he got mort dogged, but the reality is that even in these difficult spots and the variance that occurs, you know that it's possible for these things to happen. So it's your job as a player to really prep for those, you know, those very niche opportunities that do occur. Those... Dang, did I say you know already? Oh, man, dude. Okay, no digressing, no saying you know. I apologize. Anyways, moving on. So far, the early game, though, it's very simple. This is a very standard Lux pair. He has the Gadget Team potential with, if he hits a Lulu, because he has the Poppy and Chop. Maybe he saw the Draven here, or maybe he saw the Jinx, depending on if he hits AP or AD here, and then try to pick up the Lux and the Poppy from the shop. Again, very standard stuff. Nothing... It's very difficult for pros to fuck up 1-4 or stage 1 in general. But as you can see here, he gets the Quick Glove, gets the AD line, so he's going to sell the Jinx and pick up the Poppy and the Lux pair. It's very difficult, again, like I was saying before, very difficult for pros in general to fuck up stage 1. Stage 1 is one of those stages that's like, if you don't have this down, you're never going to even be able to climb into Challenger in the first place, so not being able to fuck up your stage 1 is a very important skill to have. Most players actually, even in like low Masters, and actually this was something I was struggling with when I was in Masters as well, but they don't play their stage 1 as efficiently as possible. So if you're ever playing your stage 1, or if you're ever playing and you're just like maybe Hearts Like Masters or below, maybe rewatch your own VODs and watch how you played stage 1 and what maybe you could have done better. What decisions could you have made to have really helped you out here? Now, this is the first tragedy. This is the first sort of mort dog moment where it's a 3-2-2. Why is this bad? 3-2-2 is a very niche, very, very rare augment presentation to ever get at 2-1. This is so rare that, personally speaking, I think I've only seen this maybe once. And I think about like 500 games this set at least. So when you put that into perspective, a 1 in 500, if you take my personal anecdotal experience of 1 in 500, it's probably less than that. It's maybe 1 in 200, 1 in 300, 1 in 100, something along those lines. But even then, it's a very niche, very rare case scenario. So a lot of pro players actually don't have a lot of experience playing around 3-2-2s because you can't even go into a custom lobby and try to like work things out and try to practice. You're kind of just stuck with this. So we're stuck with the 3-2-2 off 2-1. And so with the lack of preparation, it's hard to think about what is technically the correct option. Now, ideally, you want a 3-cost augment that you can play around, where your spot is strong enough that you'll be able to take the augment and you'll be able to streak or play a strong board or have very clear direction with. Here's the problem. Temper Tantrum from 2-1, you could argue is good because Gadgeteen is strong. He has a Poppy and he has a Poppy and an Annie on bench. Plus, he has the Nard to give him 3 Gadgeteen. So he would have a decent early game, but he would have to bank on somehow hitting that Gadgeteen crest, or he'd have to pivot out pretty hard. And he would have to give up the Nard at some point as his main carry and, you know, item swap to something else. It gets very messy into mid to late game. So unless he hits that Nunu and high rolls, it's going to be a very difficult game to win out. So Temper Tantrum is definitely not the correct option here. Time and a Half is actually okay because he does have the Last Whisper on bench. But like I said before, he has 3-2-2, the 3-cost augment. He wants to be able to utilize that if he can. And with 4 rerolls, it's not very risky to reroll it and try to hit something else that could potentially be used and be better. Now, you could argue here that he does have kind of a laser core opener, so maybe even a Yasuo augment like Exiles could work. But Exiles in general is not very strong, so definitely you could reroll here. It's okay. He had Stubborn, Raider Spoil, Boxing Lessons, and I'm actually going to keep playing this in real time so that you can understand the stress levels that are going on. Time Knife, Guardian Spirit, get excited. You're probably going to reroll that again. Here he is, Jubilee Veil. Probably not going to take Jubilee Veil because it's not a very good augment. And then he's out of rerolls. This is his last options. He has Behemoth, Rising Spellforce. Everyone goes boom. No Anima start. No Underground start. Behemoth is a very terrible augment to take in general. What can you do from this spot? And Setsuko's got 4 seconds left, 3 seconds left. Ends up taking Rising Spellforce after scouting the lobby, sees that nobody else is running it. Takes on the Brawlers and the Ezreal. But we're going to rewind it a little bit here just so we can really see how terrible the spot is. But even with the spot, like, no Underground start, no Ezreal 2, no blue buff, no quick draw. This is a hard spot to play from. This is a very hard spot to play from. And we can talk about the hero augments now because we kind of went through it in real time, but it's such a stressful hero augment choice and decision to make. We even talked and yapped for like the first part of the hero augments without even really talking about the other options as well. We got to talk a little bit about Time Knife and Wins the Wanderer, as well as Temper Tantrum, but we got to think about it we got to think about it and like pause and like, you know, take our time, take our leisure with it. What was the correct option here? Let's talk about it because you might find yourself in this predicament where you don't know what to do at all for your hero augments. You feel like you low rolled here. And I think a lot of players, including myself watching this live, was like, he just got a completely more dog. He didn't have any options. But when we rewind the clip and actually talk about it, right, we definitely reroll here no matter what. You have 4 rerolls. There's surely you hit something, right? So you hit Stubborn, Raider Spoils, and Boxing Lessons. You definitely reroll here again as well. Everybody will reroll from the spot. Stubborn's not a very good augment in general. Raider Spoils and Boxing Lessons is... And Boxing Lessons is okay as a general augment, but with the 3-cost potential on the line and 3 rerolls left, you almost always reroll from the spot. Time Knife is sort of the first takeable option, surprisingly enough. I don't know the Time Knife line very well. That is just not my strong suit. I've never played this augment before. I think I played it maybe once. It's a very difficult augment, very niche line. If he had the prep for Time Knife and he knew how to play around it, then I think it's a very takeable augment from this spot. According to Robin and some other high-level challenger players who was watching this VOD live, and they were reviewing the augment choices because they were also confused as to like what he could have done. Time Knife was supposedly a viable option from this spot because apparently his item components are good for it. Maybe it's Hodge into RFC, but I mean, it's very difficult to say though. Especially he'd have 3 defender start instead of 4, which is probably the ideal start for a Time Knife start. So I don't even know if Time Knife is even the correct option from this choice. Plus 2 rerolls left, you would probably reroll again as well. And I mean, I would have rerolled here, to be honest. Here, Jubilee Veil, League of Draven, Channel Ferromancy, and again, we were sort of tunnel visioning on the 3 costs as well. And this is actually was going on through Setsuko's head as well, because again, trying to garner that value. Channel Ferromancy was like the only correct option here. The only, I guess you could say, quote-unquote obvious. It wasn't even like super obvious. It was like a hidden obvious choice, if you will, because of the amount of tunnel visioning that we were doing. So Channel Ferromancy is a viable option here because we have Shiv on bench, and we can play around potentially Kaisa, maybe around a Misfortune, and maybe Star Guardian Misfortune down the future. But Channel Ferromancy is the only line that everybody's sort of aware of because of that one patch when Kaisa was like the meta for the entire patch. But Channel Ferromancy, everyone's very comfortable with it, especially at the pro level, so this was kind of the only correct option to take at this point. But again, 20 seconds left on the clock, Setsuko gets nervous and he rolls over it. But Channel Ferromancy into Shiv was probably the correct option. Now let's say you're in this position. Was Rising Spellforce really the correct option from this spot? The answer is no. The answer is actually you should have taken Behemoth in this spot. And again, it's very difficult. The time constraint was very, very tight. And at this point, Setsuko's panicking. Because it's like, what could I do in this spot, right? The idea here is that you should have taken Behemoth and you play around either Shiv or Last Whisper for tempo. Probably Shiv. You tempo into a Shiv Morgana at level 7 and you play a Jhin board. That was sort of the only other option that was available to you as well. You could have also taken Behemoth and tried to play around Oxlingers with a Shiv Slam and tempo as well. And that gives you two options, both the Jhin line with Shiv Morgana and the Spellslingers line with the Shiv TF. Really difficult to see though. This is a really difficult line to see when you only have like 15 seconds left and you're given an augment that nobody would use in that scenario, specifically if you're either playing either Jhin or if you're playing around Oxlingers. Oxlingers, you're usually playing around Burning Spirit, anti-support augment. Or in Oxlingers, you're usually playing around Adaptive Defenses, which is the Camille support augment as well. Nobody would ever take an Alistar augment in either of those scenarios. So it's very difficult to see this line. So understandably, Setsuko doesn't see the line here. And this was the first real sort of downfall / mort dog moment of the tournament, if you will. So again, we're going to speed up here. We're going to pass through here. And we're just going to skip across here into 3-2, into the hero or not hero augments, sorry, regular augments. Given Jewel Lotus, Quick Draw, Heart Brawler, Crest. Now he's sort of already committed into the Ezreal line. He has no other choice. He has to play this line. And you might notice he's at 61 HP. And based off the fact that he lost on 3-1, you can safely assume that this guy just 6 lost. So what does this mean? It means he has to start winning now. He has to start winning now. And I can tell you this as well. He didn't have an underground start. He never hit underground until this point. So he hasn't had underground in this entire time. So at this point, if you're going to start winning here, you either have to take Jewel Lotus, Quick Draw, Heart. And actually, a lot of people may lean Jewel Lotus here, which is very understandable. Jewel Lotus is a very strong augment. It's a free JG on all your units. But the correct option in this scenario, I believe, was actually Quick Draw, Heart. And the reason why is because whenever you're playing the Rising Spellforce line with Ezreal, we can actually open up the team builder here real quick. But in general, I can probably do this quick enough that it doesn't feel like I am wasting your time. But in general, it is usually a Vi 3, Lee Sin 3 for your front line. Lee Sin 3 is definitely in a more optional scenario. It's kind of rare if you ever manage to hit the Lee Sin. But then after that, it is 4 Quick Draw. And then this is sort of the board that you'll have when you start winning out. If you notice, if you take Quick Draw Heart here, you actually are able to drop Delusion here and flex another unit onto your board, maybe an Aegis unit like Echo, and that gives you Star Guardian as well. This gives you 4 Quick Draw, and this board actually gives you the most power, the most bang for your buck, if you will, whenever you're playing around the Rising Spellforce. This is sort of the board that he should be aiming for. And Quick Draw Heart is the best way to go about it. At least now it gives him the most potential power, because hitting him his Fortune at level 6 is very hard. It's very rare. So to be able to access 4 Quick Draw already, this was sort of the only option that he had, at least available to him, right? This is probably something that he's looking for. So if we go back to here, Quick Draw Heart was probably the correct option here, but again, hitting Jewel Lotus here is fine as well. He does have double Crit Glove, so you could argue that he could do Jewel Lotus into TG, and that's a bigger spike potentially now, rather than maybe trying to hit the 4 Quick Draw now. But it's close. But personally, I think I would go with the Quick Draw Heart, especially because it gives you an Ezreal. That's sort of the only thing that I can think about from this spot. Here at level 6, he starts doing his roll down here, and he starts trying to find his units, trying to find a playable board from the spot. Starts rolling, looks for the units, hits the Echo, hits the Ezreal, has to sell the Draven, hits up a Riven Pair, has to sell the Blitz 1 on his board, and he's like, you can tell he's getting kind of dizzy, because he's like, what am I supposed to play from the spot? I'm not hitting any of my units, I'm not hitting the Ezreals, I'm not hitting the Vis, I'm not, I found a Sona, I found a Riven 2, like, what is this board, though? You're playing 4 Underground with the Riven 2 and the Lucian, and it's still Ezreal 1. And like we said before, he needs to start winning from this spot. He's too low. He's lost too much tempo. He has no money. He needs to start winning in order to rebuild his economy so that he can try to slow roll and try to hit that Ezreal 3 at 50 gold while winning. It's a hard thing to do. And it's very scary to zero out here. You could argue he had to zero out here and try to hit everything. But you might also notice that he's playing what's called a bit of a variable roll down. What is a variable roll down? This is not a real term. I made this up. But a variable roll down or roll down variant is when you roll on your roll down, you end up with a variation of a comp rather than the main line. So here, for example, he wanted the quick draws but ended up with underground. And Rising Spellforce is very punishing when you don't hit. If you hit a roll down variant, you are going to get fucked, because it does not play into your favor, especially when you lose streak at the beginning of the game. And from this point on, at 3-2, if this was solo queue, you could FF. You could quite honestly FF from this spot and nobody would blame you. Because you just don't have enough power on your board. You're just gonna keep losing, and this is like, the game is over. The game is quite literally over, and there's nothing you can do about it. What the fuck? Oopsies. I forgot to close that out. But, apologies. But as we can see here, we fast forward, if you will, into 4-5, because I forgot to add a blur transition in between those clips. But here we are, 4-5. He's still on Ezreal 2. Managed to find the Vi 3, but it has TG on it. Like, this spot's completely fucked. His spot's completely fucked, and he ends up going 8th place, like we had predicted a stage and a half ago. And that is the tragedy of game 1. Now, this is now game 2. And you could argue that, well, it was just game 1. He went 8th place once. Like, he should be fine, right? Like, he can still come back. He can. But any more bot 4s after that, it's, like, almost impossible for him to come back. At least on day 3. So, I mean, again, that's based off the checkmate format, and you can argue that the checkmate format is actually a piece of shit format, and we should really revamp it, and I would agree with you. It is a shit format, but there's nothing we can do. Game 2, he hits the duplicator start into an egg, a 2-4 carousel. Why is this bad? Why is this duplicator into the egg so terrible? Well, it's bad because the duplicator is sort of your 3 gold, and it's technically supposed to balance out, but the 3 gold is way more valuable, the initial 3 gold, than the duplicator. And so you're in this weird predicament where you kind of want to hold the duplicator in case you're playing a reroll comp, but at the same time, if you're playing around a duplicator, like what if you don't end up playing a reroll comp, you want to play standard, then you just, you're at a huge econ deficit trying to make your money back, and especially with an X start on carousel, it means that you have, like, no money. 0 money. Usually carousel, you get, like, a 1, 2, 3 cost unit. You can sell it to make econ thresholds. Like 10 gold, 20 gold. And here, as we can see, it's 2-6. It's 2-6. Setsuko has still yet to make 10 gold. He is dirt poor this game. And actually, we fast forward to Krugs here. He gets a spat off Krugs, which is problematic. Actually, if he had hit the 10 gold here, his spot's actually fine. It's saved. But now, he gets an Alistar and a Chain Vest. So, his spot, he needs to make 20 gold here. If he doesn't make 20 gold here, he's basically dead. He's basically dead. So he's forced to sell one of these units that he actually really wanted to hold on to, which ends up being the Neela. He finally makes 30 gold at 3-1, which is very late. Very late. He finally makes 30 gold at 3-1, going 3-2, and then it's a prismatic. So this guy has basically no money to work with from the very beginning of the game. And then, even on Krugs, rolls like negative money, has to sell units that he actually wants to hold on to, and then he has to play into a prismatic lobby where everybody's really, really strong. So he's not only behind tempo of the lobby, the gap between his tempo and everybody else's tempo is significantly largened now. It's actually enlarged because everybody's board has spiked even further because of these prismatic augments on 3-2. The thing about prismatics is that they just expedite your progress, right? But it's never equal. So even though everybody got a prismatic, you could argue that everybody's board got strengthened up in equal amount. That's not actually the case. The reality is that some prismatics will optimize some boards more than others, and especially if you're win streaking, you're definitely going to take an augment that's going to spike your board now. Maybe it's not the most optimal, but you take this augment that's going to spike you now, and because it's a prismatic level augment, your board spike is going to be much higher versus Setsuko, who, luckily enough, picks up Earth's Grab Bag. He hits a Fawn, which is great, but in case you haven't realized, it's actually not great. In fact, a Fawn here is actually pretty detrimental to him. Why is it detrimental? It's detrimental because by building the Fawn, you have to build a Fawn here, by the way. It's your best option here. But you end up building the Fawn here. You're level 5, 30 gold. You have 6 units on your board, but you're literally level 5. You're basically playing level 6 with level 5 odds, which is absolutely terrible. And he can't even roll. In an ideal scenario, he actually levels here and then rolls a little bit, but he actually makes the correct decision to not do that because he already has 6 units on his board and just try to find whatever like spikes he can through level 5 odds, which is absolutely terrible. It sucks. This is just, it's a terrible spot to be in. He doesn't even have very clear direction as well. He's probably playing into Pike or probably playing into Jhin with the Shiv and Shiv Morgana. And as we can see here on 4-1, he sends it down, by the way. And sorry, I don't know if that transition was a little too abrupt, but 4-1, he finally transitions his board. He's rolled all his money. He's dirt poor again, and he has all these pairs that he can't even play. He has I believe he has... I don't see where the Vex is. He has a Vex pair. He has an Aatrox pair, which he would like to play. He has a Morgana pair and a Pike 4. But, like, this spot is terrible. This spot is downright terrible. It's so difficult to play from this spot. You don't even want to slam the Last Whisper here because you have a Shiv Morgana who's going to give you that AD reduction anyways, or the armor reduction rather. This spot is so difficult to play from. And the thing is, he has to play from the spot because he has to try to play up tempo, because he has to play an extra unit that costs him extra money too. So what's going to go on here? So 4-2 happens, right? Going into our augments here, we have Makeshift, Cybernetic, and Knife's Edge. And I actually kept this in here because it's not a critical moment, but it's a moment we should talk about. Renegades in general actually really likes Makeshift armor, but because you play a lot of shitters and the shitters don't end up getting itemized, so Makeshift is nice. But he actually took component grab bag, so taking Cybers was probably the correct choice here. He does end up taking Makeshift just because it follows the general theory of Renegades. But again, like I said before, Setsuko's poor as fuck. Like, there's only so much you can do from the spot. The spot is really difficult. And even if he tries to econ back up, he's going to econ back up. By the time it's 5-1 here, he's only 50 gold. And he's still level 7. And this is where he cemented his 7th place. This was not no Mort Dog diff or anything like that. It wasn't like his RNG was bad. But as you can notice on his board, and I know it's a little weird here, but he has a Jin 1 still, Viego 1, Asol 1, Alistar 1. So, and Morg 1, actually. So, what do you do in this scenario, right? A lot of people, well, it's 5-1, they go, oh, it's 5-1, it's a standard interval, you should push level here and try to hit your upgrades. No. You shouldn't ever really push level knowing that you need to upgrade your units. Because once you level and then you don't have any money to roll down after with, you will not, even if you find the units, you can't even buy them. It's like going fast 9 and then you're sending a level 9 with 0 gold and then you just can't pick up any of your units and you're just going to slowly bleed out. And unfortunately for Setsuko, I think he was just sort of tilted because of game 1 plus of just the terrible economic start that he was given this game. He doesn't identify that this needs to be the case, and he unfortunately scouts the lobby, pushes level here, and this is the final mistake. He has 7 gold to work with to try to hit the Alistar 2, the Jin 2, the Asol 2, and the Morg 2. He just doesn't have nearly enough money for this. You can make the argument that he's like, he has a 2 loss, so he needs to start spiking his board now. But quite honestly, he should probably just wait one more round and then just try to roll down. That extra 5-6 gold, or really 7 gold, or even 8 gold, I don't even know how much it is. But I believe, okay, hold on, 2 loss with 5 streak, or 2 loss with 5 gold interest, so it's like, what, it's like a 7 gold extra that he could have had to work with. Could have made the difference at least 1 extra upgrade. And like, if he had won 5-1 and he won 5-2 somehow, then at 5-3 he could go level 8. And that's okay too. He just sacks 1 more loss, and then depending on when that loss is, then he can push level and try to find his units. Again, Setsuko has to play a really difficult position. Game 1 was already difficult with the hero augment decision making, and then game 2 was very difficult because of how little money he had to work with. And I don't blame him for this mistake. He's so behind tempo that he feels like he needs to push level here. But if you're that tilted off of game 1 going into game 2, and then you like have this terrible economic start and you're forced to play up a fawn because that's like your best option, but then you're down even more money because you're playing up an extra unit, it's a difficult spot to be in. It's a very difficult spot to be in. It's very difficult. Even when you VOD review this stuff, it takes a little bit of time to sort of identify what would have been the correct and what would have been the incorrect decisions here, right? And what were the mistakes and what were not. So as we can see here, we're going to fast forward here down into stage 5-6. And as you can notice at the top, he just kept losing. He kept losing anyway. So he could have, what he could have done, again, could have saved up a bit more money before hitting level 8 and then rolling down, because he has to play up so many extra units and he has to play up and try to find all those upgrades. We can see here on his board, it's still Jin 1. He's still playing Jin 1. His secondary carry is an Asol 2 with a Guard Breaker. Like, this game's fucked. This game's fucked. And unfortunately, Setsuko goes out, loses here on 5-6, and he ends game 2 with a 7th. Really, really unfortunate stuff. And set 8.5. That's very awkward. I did not like that. That's a jump scare. Listen, the point is this. that was scary. Listen, the point is this. Setsuko was dealt probably one of the hardest hands to play with. But at the end of the day, TFT is a game of variance. And unfortunately enough, After that second really hard loss, it's almost impossible for Setsuko to come back in the rest of the tournament. I was really rooting for Setsuko. I was really hoping he would win it all. But, again, it was just a little unfortunate that he had to play such very difficult positions. But that's part of TFT. There's variance in the game. We know there's variance in the game. We have to know how to play around that, how to think critically from our positions, and play to the best of our ability, and try to salvage what are very, very difficult games to play. I hope you guys learned something, and I will see you guys next time. Happy climbing.